Our story kicks off in a city that's a total wreck, completely torn to pieces. Looks like a massive fight went down. And this dude right here is our main character, the MC. Yep, what I tell you. A huge brawl just happened, but it looks like our MC came out on top. But, for some weird reason, the guy who got wrecked has a little smirk on his face. With a sidelong glance he lets out and, I knew it. Kid, you're different from all those other suckers. And it's not just suckers, they're useless too, okay? The guy isn't satisfied with just insults, he has to humiliate them with gusto. Of course our MC, already seeing red, tells him to shut his trap. But the guy, still smiling, just asks him to finish the job, saying the MC is the only one who can do it. But the MC refuses, saying he won't be the one to do the dirty work. He promised his team he wouldn't finish off any villains. Instead, he's gonna throw this psycho in jail and let justice be served. But to this day, the MC regrets it. He should have taken care of that scumbag right then and there. In the next scene, we see a news report on TV. The anchor announces that the worst villain in history, that Huang fella, was sentenced to the maximum penalty. To be safe, they fitted him with a device to suppress Huang's powers. And now he's locked up tight on the 5th basement level of the villain prison, Rukilos. What a weird name, right? Rukilos. But whatever, who am I to judge? The reporter also mentions that some heroes fell in battle. They were none other than our MC's partners, Genju Seo. He was the only hero to survive the confrontation. The joint funeral for the fallen heroes will be held later tonight. The newswoman continues with the report, but it seems our MC has had enough and turned off the TV. Genju immediately looks back with that "who the heck was that" look on his face. But it was just his brother, telling him to go lie down and recover for real. That's called recovery, not watching TV while sitting there all busted up. Unlike our MC, this guy's name is Gango Seo. And no, they're not the same person, even though they're the spitting image of each other. He's also an agent at the Rukilos prison. To make life easier for everyone, one's named Genju, and the other is Gango, got it? But you know what? I'm gonna nickname our MC Cruel. You'll see why in a bit, trust me. Cruel vents to his brother, saying he's got a weird feeling, like he made a huge mistake. At the end of the day, he thinks he should have finished off that creep. But his brother reminds Cruel of the promise he made to his comrades. And then we flash back to the past, with one of his partners saying just that heroes save people. Their job isn't to take lives. Even if it's a villain, you don't finish anyone off. Criminals are people too and deserve to be judged. Of course, Cruel argued back then. The idea is nice and all, but what if the tables turn? What if the villains decide to take them out? But the woman was insistent and made everyone promise not to finish anyone off. Oh, and before I forget, she made it crystal clear, no matter what happens, you leave the villain alive. Back in the present, the brother says he completely agrees with what she said. Only the law can condemn people. However, it's agents like him who carry out the sentence. To add more fuel to the fire, he drops some classified info. The juicy gossip we all love, right? He tells him that Wong, that crazy villain, is scheduled for execution next week. To wrap it up, he tells his brother that he did a great job as a hero, but the rest is up to the corrections officers. Getting up, he calls for Cruel to come with him. It's time to say goodbye to his companions. At the funeral site, we see the heroes received many tributes. But there were also some protests mixed in, and I couldn't tell if they were for or against. From my shoddy English, I think they were against. You know, on the bright side, the tribute itself is quite beautiful. Cruel and his brother finally arrive at the location, bringing a rose for their farewell. And that's when a week goes by. On the day of Huang's execution, Cruel's brother also passed on to a better place. Yeah, folks, nobody saw that one coming. The whole thing completely shattered Cruel. He had already lost his entire team, and as if that wasn't enough, now he's lost his brother. By a twist of fate, the criminal who was supposed to be punished by the law survived, while his brother, a corrections officer, was brutally taken out. Poor Cruel is completely devastated without any hope left, but it's at this moment that someone calls out to him. Could this be our first waifu? Could anyway, she says it's been a while since she's seen him. This here is Sonjo, the director of Rukilo's prison. She says she needs to have a serious talk with Cruel. Then she hands him a tablet with a video of Wong. Cruel asks what it is, and she replies that the recording is from today. That was what went down during Huang's execution. Going back in time a bit, we see Huang calling out to Gango. The psycho comments on how much Genju looks like him and asks if they're brothers. The difference is you don't have superpowers. Is that why you became an agent? By the way, which one of you is older? Of course, Gango ignores him and doesn't answer. But the creep is persistent and calls out to him again. He asks how Gango feels when he takes someone out. Since, besides being an agent, he's also an executioner. I'm sure you've taken lives, just like me. That's why I'm asking, what's it feel like? Huang says for him, it's a piece of cake. However, from the look on Gango's face, you can tell it's not easy for him at all. Huang says for him it's simply just a gentle touch and the person just pops like a balloon. Whoa, what's this? Did this turn into Jujutsu Kaisen all of a sudden? Gango replies that it's not like that for him. Every time he struggles with a horrible sense of guilt, even when he has to execute scum like Wong. And mind you, all he has to do is press a button. Because of this, Gango has terrible nightmares, which makes getting a good night's sleep pretty difficult. All because of the villains, who in his nightmares also call him a murderer. Yeah, they're living rent-free in the dude's head. Huang finds it strange that, even with all that, he continues to work there. Gango replies that he does because someone has to do the dirty work. After all, he's just doing his duty as an agent. Before they begin the execution, Gango asks Huang if he has any last words. And again, Huang asks which of the two is the older brother. The creep got fixated on that, such a psycho thing to do. But, of course, Gango doesn't answer again and just orders the execution to begin. The countdown starts. And finally, they press the button. However, it was at that exact moment that something surprising happened. Something interfered with the video recording. Cruel didn't understand a single thing. But Sunjo explains that at the moment of the execution, the power in Rukilo's prison just went out. The guards started to wonder if it was a blackout. And that's when Huang starts shouting that he knew it. Only Genju can finish me off. Immediately, Gango yells for everyone to get down on the floor. And just like that, an explosion happens. One of the guards starts calling for backup on the radio. He yells that the prisoner broke the suppression device. But, unfortunately for him, Huang was already right next to him, preparing that gentle touch. In the next second, the guard starts to swell up. And in the one after that, he's sent flying. Yeah, his ability is pretty similar to the one from Jujutsu, for real. Finally free, Huang approaches Gango. As if the situation wasn't bad enough, he adds, "I'm guessing you're the older one. Am I right?" It's at this moment we realize Gango is a bit clueless. In a prison packed with super-powered villains, the dude pulls out a nightstick. An IJTSTK. Buddy, even if you had a bazooka, it'd be a tough fight. And you bring a club to the party? Wong, without even needing to touch him, makes his arm explode. Okay, maybe his ability is a little different from the guy in Jujutsu. Gango is now missing an arm, but the stubborn guy doesn't give up. And there he goes, grabbing the club again. He yells that Huang deserves to be punished by the law. Let justice be served. Yeah, too bad that didn't work out so well, huh? Apparently, Huang doesn't even need to touch anyone. He just extends his little hand. Kaboom! Huang, with a victorious look, says that's fine. I'll just ask Genju himself if I was right. Back to the present. Sanjo continues to explain the situation to Cruel. An unidentified EMP attack ended up freeing all the prisoners on every single floor, and none of them have their power suppression devices anymore. The good news is that they managed to lock down the prison, keeping the bad guys inside. The bad news is that many agents were also trapped. Seeing red, Cruel wants to know who the scumbag was that set up this attack. And a quick pause here, have you guys noticed that the MC, who the series is named after, has barely shown up so far? His brother stole the show, the villain stole the show. I bet even his partners who already bit the dust got more screen time. Our lovely director, Sonjo, says they are still investigating. In the end, she gets ahead of herself and apologizes to Cruel, saying that, unfortunately, she has to make a delicate request on the very day of his brother's funeral. Could you possibly suppress the rebellion in Rukilo's prison? Filled with hatred in his heart, Cruel replies that he most certainly can. But there's a catch. He imposes a single condition. But unfortunately, we don't find out what it is, because the scene cuts to inside Rukilo's prison. Inside, all hell is breaking loose. The villains are going completely ballistic, trying to escape. And that's when, out of nowhere, the main gate just opens. The villains calm down for a second, trying to figure out the situation. But the confusion soon turns into euphoria. His escaping is going to be a piece of cake now. Psych. At that moment, an explosion sends everyone flying back. Cruel, unfortunately, had promised his team that, as long as he was a hero, he wouldn't finish anyone off. However, his condition to Sonjo was to enter the prison as an executioner. Thus, he introduces himself to all that scum, saying he will be their new corrections officer. Of course, the villains immediately recognize the famous name. They even wonder why a hero would be there, wearing an agent's uniform. But to them, it doesn't matter. The guy came because he wanted to, now he's got to take the heat and get a beatdown. The villains charge at Cruel, already activating their abilities. Instead of retreating or feeling scared, he simply charges forward with a devastating punch. And, folks, his punch does an absurd amount of damage. We see that many prisoners were instantly sent to the Shadow Realm, but maybe a few made it out alive. Yeah, on second thought, I don't think anyone made it out alive. Maybe that one dude over there, missing both his legs, is still breathing. But I highly doubt it. Highly. The remaining villains start to wonder, what kind of joke is this? But Cruel just grabs the microphone and tests it. Hello, hello, testing 1, 2, 3. He tells all the pigs to start listening. Under government order, all prisoners from the ground floor, through the first and second basement levels, the third, the fourth, and even the fifth. The one taking over as corrections officer from now on is me. Down on the 5th floor, Huang hears Cruel's voice and cracks a huge smile. Looks like the guy finally arrived. Even with Cruel saying he's going to eliminate everyone, the prisoners don't get it. What's this about execution? Is he out of his mind? Now he just wants to wipe everyone out. Cruel shoots back. You guys took out a ton of people, and now you want to talk about injustice. Alita, one of the prisoners, gets offended. Hey, I didn't even take out that many? Only like 12. Bronx says the same thing. I only sent 7 people to meet their maker. Just 7. Cade says he only sent 3 to the grave. He just forgot to mention the little details like child kidnapping and some domestic assault, besides the 3 he sent packing. The prisoners start shouting, demanding their lawyers. And not only that, but also the blessed human rights folks. The one keeping quiet over there is Shoy. He only took out 8 people and also has an assault on his record. He notices that Cruel is pretty distracted by the others. It would be the perfect moment to make a run for it. So he starts to activate his power. The kid vanishes from the back and reappears at the front. He even manages to get past Cruel. But that's the moment his soul gets screenshotted and sent straight to the big guy downstairs. And just as he went, he comes back. Only this time, just a part of his body. The rest of the villains are immediately scared out of their wits. Cruel says he's going to give everyone 2 choices. You can calmly put on the control device and return to your cells, or you await your execution, or I clean house and send everyone to the great beyond all at once. The choice is yours. And that's when some wannabe tough guy shows up, calling Cruel a son of a... well, you get the picture. He says he definitely prefers the last option. Since we're gonna hell anyway, let's go down fighting. This negotiation doesn't seem very favorable, but Cruel cuts him off. There's no negotiation. The only thing I can offer is a quick trip. Hearing this, the crowd realizes things have gotten serious. They start considering that it's better to use the device and go back to their cells. Better to be taken out peaceful than to suffer at this guy's hands. But then Mr. Colgate's smile, using his power, lets out a deafening scream. This clearly gets everyone's attention. He says, even if he is the hero of equality, we don't need a deal. He's just one guy. In fact, I've already taken out 2 second-class heroes myself just by using teamwork. That starts to motivate the crowd. Smiling, he continues, that's right, no need to be scared. Just take out this sucker and get our freedom back. Cruel realizes that this must be the boss of the first floor, the same one the director had mentioned. We quickly flash back to the past, when Sonjo was explaining the layout of Rukilo's prison. On the first floor are those who have taken out a lot of people. On that floor alone, there must be about 300 serial killers, but of those, 100 managed to put an entire city in danger. On the second basement level, 30 prisoners put entire metropolis in danger. On the third, 10 put a nation at risk. On the fourth, 5 threatened the entire continent. And on the 5th basement level, the prisoner threatened the whole world. Although it seems like a lot of people, when he gets there, he'll probably find fewer of them. In a random cut, we see that on the 2nd basement level, there are some crazy girls controlling all the prisoners. They're ordering everyone to confess their sins. Apparently, this means things are calm down there. As for the 5th basement level, we see Wong trying to make friends. Except no one there is friendly with anyone. So Huang isn't going to make many friends, no. However, he doesn't seem too worried. He just wants to find something to do until Cruel arrives, even if it means tormenting that girl. But anyway, you guys get that on almost every floor, chaos reigns. Nobody likes anybody. There are only 2 exceptions: the 2nd floor, with the girls controlling everyone, and the 1st floor, which is controlled by a single person. The guy sponsored by Colgate, also known as Speech. This fella's special ability is to strengthen his allies using sound. That's why he's screaming like a maniac. Back to the present, Cruel recites the reason the guy's in prison. The creep invaded a hospital with 30 people and took out 7 of them. Counting the 2nd-class heroine, that makes 8. Actually, Speech corrects him, saying it was 10. Smiling, he adds, the heroine was pregnant with twins. Yeah, MMC, you can clean house with this one, but make sure you rough him up good, you hear? This guy deserves it. And as if he heard my request, Cruel calls the boss on the communicator. He asks if the prison could handle him using his full strength. And the boss replies, let it rip. Go all out. I guarantee the prison won't collapse. Cruel says, alright, then I won't hold back. Mr. Colgate tells him to shut up, saying he's just bluffing. He didn't even do anything to save his friends, he probably used them as bait. That's why he managed to defeat Wong. But no worries, you'll be meeting up with them soon enough. Yelling again, he uses his ability to strengthen the team. And, for real, everyone feels an absurd amount of strength coursing through their bodies. Their powers start overflowing with so much energy. So, they all charge in for the attack. However, Cruel doesn't just stand there, and immediately responds with a massive kick. In that one move, he must have taken out about 50 of them at once. If you actually stop to count, I think it's even more. The worst part is, the kid doesn't stop. He's already lifting his foot for another strike. And as soon as his foot touches the ground, he sends everyone flying. Speech doesn't understand what's happening anymore. A second ago, he was on the ground, and now he's flying. And the worst part, here comes Cruel to beat up everyone some more. The villains, even in mid-air, try to fight back. But Cruel activates his mode number 1. My friend, I don't even have words for this scene. Just look at the damage his form 1 did. Imagine the rest. Literally, quickly, and with a single attack, he eliminated everyone. Even Mr. Colgate's smile, who I thought would last longer because he was so cocky, wasn't even worth the effort. Cruel reports that all prisoners on the 1st floor have been executed. Now he's heading to check solitary confinement. On the way, he runs into 2 suckers, and as always, he offers the choice, want to be taken out now or later. Either you put on the device and go back to your cell, or you'll be digging your own grave right here. The decision is yours. The skinny guy, of course, gets scared right away, but it looks like the big guy wants to throw down. Yep, folks, the big guy comes in hot, thinking he can handle the exchange. But we see he couldn't even take one measly little kick. Man, in all honesty, I really want to know how Cruel became like a real-life Saitama. Where did this dude get so much strength? Surrendering, the skinny guy says he'll put on the device, no effort needed. Cruel says, "Alright, you can come get it." Pretending to be scared, the skinny guy reaches out his hand to grab the device. But, of course, every side character loves to get beat up, especially when they're a criminal, right? Instead of surrendering, he activates his ability. He launches some kind of purple fire. The creep was still yelling that there was no way in hell he was surrendering. But then he realized the huge mistake he'd made. Cruel was unscathed and, this time, a little bit irritated. I mean, not that much, his face is still pretty calm. That's when Cruel remembers Tomo, one of his partners from Equality. The girl was always saying she felt sorry for people without physical superpowers. They can only shoot from a distance. They'll never know how thrilling it is to crush someone with your own hands. And remember, this crazy chick was a hero. That said, Cruel is going to do just like her. He's going to attack with his fists. There's just one small detail: when he sends the guy to the great beyond, he doesn't feel any euphoria or anything like that. In fact, the sensation is similar to cracking an egg. But anyway, to hell with this whole story. Cruel continues on his way to solitary. After opening the door, he comes face to face with one of the prisoners. The prisoner says, "I was wondering what all that noise was about. But now I see it's you." It's been about 3 years since they've seen each other. And now, they're about to have an emotional reunion. This guy is Shockfielder, and the reason for that muzzle is that he's a fan of a little human barbecue, if you know what I mean. Yeah, that kind of meat. I won't even say the name so I don't get in trouble with monetization, right? But besides that, the guy also desecrates the bodies. The prisoner asks if Cruel still remembers him. Looks like the great hero got himself a new job, even if your face doesn't look too good. In true Sigma fashion, Cruel repeats the same old line: choose. Put on the device or get sent packing. Taking off the mask, Shockfielder ignores the question. He just comments that running into Cruel was unexpected and that it would be nice to see both him and his friends, who, by the way, have already bit the dust. We flash back to the past, when Shockfielder was captured. Cruel looked at the scene around him and noticed a pot full of meat. That kind of meat. The creep Shockfielder even asked him if it didn't look delicious. "It was all made just now, it's fresh. It must be delicious." Hearing that made Cruel not happy at all. Back then, Shockfielder didn't give him any options. So, he prepared a punch to the face to take the psycho out. But someone shouted his name, stopping him from completing the punch. It's always at times like these that some blessed soul shows up to interfere. And in this case, it was that saint of the group. What a pain. If Cruel had just finished everyone off as soon as he caught them, he would have avoided so much trouble. But, with no other choice, he backed off. What can you do? The woman wears an outfit like Homelander, but she's still one of the good guys. How ironic. Back in the present, Cruel tells him to answer. If he doesn't answer, the elimination will happen anyway. Like any psycho who loves to chat, he asks if Cruel knows why he took out those people. Phew, that almost didn't come out right. Cutting him off, Cruel slashes his head, saying he's not interested in the slightest. But the weirdest thing is that the villain keeps talking. He says he did it so everyone would remember him. When I take someone out, I become the most memorable person in the victim's life. Yeah, folks. Looks like he's still alive. That must have been an illusion. This creep can use his power to record his memories in the eyes of his victims. That way, they never forget him, not even after they're gone. Shockfielder doesn't forget his victims either. He remembers every single one of them. He even asks Cruel if he wants to see each one. He starts to pull up the image of a little girl. But to prevent that, Cruel finally makes a real attack, and there goes an arm. Cruel asks, "Is this why you're in solitary? Because you like to talk so much?" "No, since you chose the hard way, your little mouth will never open again." Shockfielder says, "Fine, that's okay. But before I go, tell me, do you remember every person you've ever eliminated?" Of course, Cruel says no. It's not worth remembering trash like them. There's not a single good soul there. Why would he bother remembering? But that's when the villain starts to play dirty. He begins to summon illusions of Cruel's old comrades. As always, Captain Homelander appears saying, "Ganju, don't do it." And of course, that really gets to our boy. I thought he'd be more shaken, but it looks like he already wiped everyone out. Cruel says that was Shockfielder's last cheap trick. This time, you won't stay alive to pull these stunts. Shockfielder can't believe it. You really cut down your comrades without hesitating. Cruel replies that he did, after all, they are all just illusions. Immediately after, he makes an attack that splits the villain in two, and there goes Shockfielder. Yeah, folks, we have to admit that this buddy of ours was also pretty messed up in the head. Cruel adds, "Besides, I'm not a hero anymore. Now, I'm a corrections officer." Even cut in half, Shockfielder says, "Indeed, but you're not just a prison guard. Not an ordinary guard. No, you're more like a monster. A monster not so different from the villain Huang." Yeah, Shockfielder went down, but he went down swinging, and we have to agree that his analysis is kind of on point, right? On the first floor alone, Cruel must have sent about 320 to the grave. And speaking of Huang, the next scene cuts right to him. The poor guy is sad because the girl doesn't want to play. He hits, and she just doesn't react. That's no fun, right? The guy is even wondering when Genji will come down. Or maybe I should start going up. Interesting. A good analysis. Meanwhile, outside the prison, we see a pretty weird looking crew. A man asks a certain Kato when she wants him to intervene. Apparently, the crazy girl has her eyes on Cruel. She's even saying, he's here. But the psycho doesn't stop there. She declares that Cruel will be her new husband. Look at how our boy wins hearts. Even the villainesses want him. However, of course, someone questions the girl. What do you mean husband? She replies, that's right, he's gonna be my new husband. Canis, who is her subordinate, is a bit lost. A little while ago, the boss had said her husband would be Wong. Kato, another subordinate, agrees. That's even why they attacked the prison to free Wong. Yep, they were the ones who caused this whole mess. Canis even comments that Cruel is a hero, an obstacle for them. But the girl disagrees. Negative, he wet as a hero. Right now, he's not looking much like one. Yeah, Cruel. She's got a point there, you know? The last thing you look like right now is a hero. The subordinates say she can only choose one, and the girl is torn between Huang and Cruel. The worst part is she can't have both, because they can't stand each other. Kato even confirms it, saying polygamy is out of the question here. So the leader says she has an idea. Let him fight it out. The man who survives at the end will be her husband. Their problem solved. Now she just wonders, which of the two will survive? Back to the prison? Sunjo is saying that Cruel did a good job. He really didn't waste any time. He cleaned out the first floor in a matter of moments. Funny, I thought he was on the ground floor, but if she says so, it must be true. She suggests that our boy rest a bit, since the prisoners on the next floors are much stronger, but Cruel refuses. He says he's going down right now and asks her to open the gate. Sunjo doesn't even argue. If the boy wants to go down, then let him go down. She just says that before Cruel goes, she wants to ask a small favor. The boss is still receiving signals from the second floor. There are still some guards alive there, not just on the second, but on the lower floors too. Pleading, she wants Cruel to help them, so they can return to their families. Cruel asks if she has any idea how many are alive on each floor, but the boss says she has no idea. All communication devices were broken, so she doesn't have an exact number. There's only one floor where things are working, which is down in the 5th basement level. But, of course, they're not working for no reason. The prisoners on the 5th floor want people outside to see what they're doing. Actually, it's Wong who wants everyone to see. He's just playing with the guards and broadcasting the show love. Yeah, you guys already know what this kid is like, right? He's not all there in the head. That said, Cruel says he'll start heading down. The guards inform the boss that the gates are ready, just waiting for her order. Without delay, she gives permission, and the gates begin to open. Sunjo warns Cruel again to be careful. The difference in strength between the prisoners on the 1st and 2nd floors is absurd. They are like night and day. Well then, the woman had barely finished speaking and Cruel was already taking a beating. The muscle-bound guy starts calling Cruel an idiot. In this situation, the fastest one wins. To make matters worse, the guys are armed. The question is, where did they get those weapons? Were there armed guards down there too? Sunjo, seeing the situation, starts yelling for Genju. However, some creep yells at her to pay attention. Her situation, in the first place, is not good at all. With great ease, he grabs the boss by the neck and lifts her up, saying he knows she's the boss and that this is a rare opportunity. One of the things he's always dreamed of doing is wiping that smug smile off her face. And now, by a twist of fate, he has the chance to do just that. The muscle-bound guy starts yelling to the other prisoners that he caught the boss and that now she belongs only to him. But while he was talking, he noticed things were way too quiet. When the idiot looks back, he realizes there's no one else standing. And worse, as soon as the loser looks up, he sees Cruel coming in like Superman. This punch is a classic hit the head, it caves in. Simple as that. See, told ya, hit the head, it caves in. It's the standard top tier move. Dismantled the guy. The only detail is that Cruel didn't gauge his strength and ended up sending the boss flying. But that's no problem either. She's not that weak. The kid immediately tells her not to come down. When the guards open the next gates, don't you move from there. This place isn't safe anymore. Sunjo surprisingly doesn't even question it. I mean, she doesn't want to end up as a goner, right? So she just says, go get him. My friend, I'll stay right here. But before he goes, she yells that she has something to say. A certain Tomioki, a villain that Tomo captured, is in solitary on the 1st basement level. Huh, that's weird, haven't we already been through solitary? Is the story bugging out? Folks, maybe it's the solitary of the 2nd basement level. Anyway, what matters is that we're between the 1st and 2nd floors, heading to another solitary. A giant prison is like that, right? A bunch of sectors, all packed, that's it. In the next scene, we're in the solitary of the 1st basement level. The folks there are also rebelling, but they don't know Cruel is coming yet, they're just hearing the booms. A super strong girl calls them stupid. If you want to come to my house and insult me too, I'm available. You know, sitting on top of a guard. She says the noise is definitely not from one of them. No one from the 1st or 2nd floor has the power to cause so much damage. This here is the aforementioned Tomioki, who took out 28 people. She says she told the rest to keep quiet, but no one listened. And that's why there's all this noise. She says the reason they're idiot villains is because they don't think. And this is because I forgot one detail. This psycho is a former hero. Of course, there's a side character who doesn't like being called dumb and provokes her with a really low blow. Getting closer, he asks if she wants to be taken out, but she just scoffs and asks if he's capable of it. The girl continues, saying that everyone there was arrested for eliminating ordinary citizens. But tell me, have you ever managed to take out someone with superpowers? For that matter, have you ever fought one? I was going to continue the explanation, but take a look at this, folks. Tell me the artist wasn't being mischievous. Take it easy, my friend, no need for all that. The side character says he's never eliminated one, but he's about to have his first time. But without even noticing, he's already been sliced. Tomioki adds, you should have kept quiet. You came looking for trouble, you found it. I captured countless villains when I was a hero. I learned how to fight against people with superpowers. And with that knowledge, I also eliminated many heroes. Now, I'm willing to share what I know with you, but you'll need to join me. The girl says she'll teach them how to hunt someone with special powers. And most importantly, she knows exactly what Cruel's ability is. Oh, my friend, it'll be a pleasure to find out, because so far all I've understood is that he hits things. He has a thing for hitting, and he hits very hard. The other prisoners ask how she knows this, and Tomioki replies that she had a long career as an experienced hero. One prisoner questions what difference that makes. The opponent was part of Equality, a group of only first-class heroes. And I thought it was a guild, I was way off. Anyway, Tomioki was third class in Cruel, first class. Our little villainess says she'll explain better. After Lauza became the leader of Equality, there were some reforms in the hero industry. First, she redefined what it meant to be a hero. It became forbidden to finish off villains. Then she started forming teams regularly to train together. Finally, the old hero classification from 1st to 5th class was abolished. It was during this time that Cruel joined, when Equality was already undergoing reform. No one expected him to make such a splash, since he didn't even have any major achievements. The gossips even said he was Lauza's lover. Just some weak rumors, you know. A prisoner says he's never actually seen Genju fight, but still, the creep cleaned out the first floor way too fast. At the very least, he's a second-class hero, well above their level. Tomioki replies that the first floor was full of nobodies. Even the side characters from here would be able to beat that rabble. It's true, over there the guys took out 30-40 people. Here, we're talking about people with over 1,000 victims on their record. A much more sinister crowd. Speech, for example, eliminated 6,435 people. Yeah, a whole lot of people. Tomioki says she's not saying Cruel is weak, just that he's not this huge monster either. Plus, she knows his weakness, and that's why she's so confident she can win. Speech asks is she sure about this weakness, but the girl replies, you don't need to be so tense. After all, do you have another option? You'd better tell me now if you're going to ally with me or not, because the enemy is already approaching. The other prisoners agree to the idea. That just leaves Speech. In the end, he says fine, he'll fight alongside Tomioki. Tomioki explains that centuries ago, superpowers emerged and researchers created a classification system. Those with the ability to strengthen their bodies were called physical types. Those who could create something out of nothing became the creation type. And those who didn't fit into either category were the special types. Leaving the lesson, we see that Cruel has reached his enemies. Through communication wires and shared vision, the prisoners start to warn Speech that he's arrived. This ability clearly will be very useful for Tomioki. Tomioki even says that Cruel is a physical type just like her. Actually, she only thinks as she knows Cruel's weakness. That's because she saw him training when she was still a hero. But at the time, his opponent was a training robot. Back in the present, Cruel tells everyone to make their choice. Go down now or go down later. The usual. Right after he asks the question, someone is already aiming at him. And here comes the little power attack. Back during the training, Tomioki observed that Cruel simply didn't dodge the robot's attack. And now she believes he will do the same. She ordered the prisoners to attack, but always from behind doors, so they'd have a shield. Everyone who attacked was either a creation type or a special type. Speech confirms that, just as the girl said, Cruel is not dodging the blows. But Tomioki knew the reason he didn't dodge was because it simply wasn't worth it for him. That's why the clever girl added a few more details to the plan. She trapped Cruel from all sides. I mean, she didn't trap him, she loaded the MC up with control devices. Let's go back in time a bit to understand this situation. Speech collected the suppression devices from the fallen guards, but they're for controlling first floor prisoners, so they wouldn't be very effective against Cruel. Tomioki says he's right, but that he doesn't need to worry. Just put all the devices on him. About 10 should be enough to suppress a second-class hero, 15 for a first class. That would surely take care of Cruel. Milan, a telepath, was tasked with placing the devices. However, just as a precaution, it's better to put on about 30, you know. That way there's no chance of him escaping. We have to admit the girl's strategy is very good. Cruel got himself into a very well-organized mess. The problem is that Tomioki made 3 small mistakes. 3 silly little errors, you know? The first is Cruel's strength. With absurd ease, he shattered everything. And he came in with that serious punch. Not even Saitama has a punch that powerful. The force of his punch far exceeds that of a first-class hero. Speech asks the rest of the group if they're seeing this. He destroyed all the suppression devices. The prisoners start running, shouting to move on to the next strategy. And Tomioki confirms, giving the command. That's when the prisoners tell Cruel not to move. If he takes one more step, the little guard will be toast. The worst part is that it's not just one hostage, it's about 3 or 4. But Cruel is Cruel, right? The overpowered dude just lifted a finger and wiped everyone out. This was Tomioki's second mistake. thinking that Cruel was only a physical type, when he's also a special type. The remaining prisoners start to comment that it's better to put on the device and surrender. That said, they start shouting for Cruel. They're saying they'll put on the device and return to their cells. But, unfortunately, Cruel says it's too late for that. He launches an attack against all the prisoners at once, and just cleans house completely. This was Tomioki's third mistake, coming up with a strategy that didn't apply to Cruel. Speech realizes that all his communication with his allies has gone down. There's not a single soul left standing. He starts screaming in desperation, saying it's a total annihilation, and asks if Tomioki doesn't have another plan. The girl stays silent, and he starts demanding an answer. But in reality, she's thinking about how this is possible. It was 30 control devices. Speech is still there, squawking like a parrot, and this gets Tomioki a little irritated. Ripping a hole in his stomach, she tells the useless guy to shut up. And there goes her last ally. Not that it makes much of a difference, right? He was already wanting to surrender anyway. Tomioki starts to get worried. She had enough devices to seal a first-class hero, but it didn't work on him. If he's this strong, why wasn't he fighting on the front lines? Nothing is making sense to her. But at that moment, she hears a small noise. The dumb animal back there could have stayed still and quiet, waiting for the dust to settle. But no, he had to move and make noise. Now he's gonna be finished off too. His luck is that, just as Tomioki was about to slice him, her hand was cut off. Luckily for the guard, Cruel arrived. Taking advantage of the opening, he runs for it. No reason to stay in the middle of this fight, right? Cruel asks if she has any last words. But the girl just laughs, knowing she's screwed. Cruel asks if that laugh will be her last word. Actually, Tomioki changes the subject. She asks if Cruel is the last living hero from Equality. Without much chatter, Cruel replies that he is. The girl asks if Otomo is gone. Cruel again very bluntly replies yes. This time the girl smiles, but a sad smile, as if she already expected it. Unbelievably, Tomioki had warned Tomo not to become a hero. Yes folks, Tomioki is Tomo's sister. That's right, the sister arrested her own sister. Tomioki also questions if the other heroes know what he's doing, like wiping everyone out, even though he's still the hero of Equality. Laza worked hard to change the hero industry, and you just threw it all in the trash. One thing is for sure, wherever she is not proud of you. Cruel just says her words were too long. The story tells us a bit about the hero industry and Tomioki. The first thing Tomioki felt when she became a hero was that something was very wrong with the industry. This whole business of heroes hunting villains, you know? Often these heroes were a bunch of jerks. With them, there was no such thing as saving innocents. If an innocent was in the way, they'd get beat up too. To make matters worse, heroes were above the law. So, their only goal was to complete the mission, finish off the villain, and that was it. The reason Tomioki became a villain named Bleach was actually quite simple. Tomo, who had no superpowers, depended a lot on her older sister. But there was something wrong with Tomioki's head, even if it was buried deep down at first. As hero, her job was to save people. However, instead of feeling proud of that, she only did it to feel a sense of superiority. Tomioki didn't continue her hero activities for very long. On one mission, she finished off her first villain, and that was her first time taking a life. For the first time in her life, she felt a gigantic sense of superiority, one so great she had never felt before. After that, Tomioki never stopped. It was villains, citizens, heroes. Whatever got in her way, she wiped them out. And among her victims, there was one type she liked the most, which was finishing off her weaker hero colleagues. It was mostly because of the surprise, the sense of betrayal, the shock. Seeing that crying expression, that's what moved her. That expression got Tomioki on a high. But, of course, no crime goes unpunished. Except for fraud. Fraud seems to be getting a pass lately. Not that I do, mind you. Good heavens, no. Tomo, her younger sister, started to get suspicious. Tomioki always came home late smelling of blood. One day, the girl decided to follow her sister. However, what she saw was not cool at all. Of course, Tomioki, at the time, got angry with her, saying she shouldn't have left the house so late. Well, but there was no helping it now, the girl was already there. And guess what? She invited her sister to join in too. Yes, she invited the child to participate in some eliminations. But that was the deal. If the child didn't want to, that was fine too. She would do it herself. And that's when Tomo yells "No." The next moment, some chains started to bind Tomioki. That was the day Tomo awakened her powers. And it was also her first activity as a future hero. From then on, she became a real hero and continued to pursue her sister, who became a notorious villain. But there was a day when Tomo called Tomioki villain instead of sister. Tomioki didn't see that one coming. She might be a killer. Yes, does she cause a ton of trouble? She does. But she didn't want to lose her sister, man. Back to the present. Tomioki asks if Tomo died suffering. Well, when she fell fighting Huang, it really did look pretty painful. However, Cruel says that Tomo passed on looking for her sister. This breaks Tomioki a little. She knows she shouldn't have asked. Transforming, she says it just made her feel worse. You know, the beatdown has to happen, so she charges right at our boy. Unbelievably, she manages to hit him. Or at least that's what she thought. The next second, the boy simply disappeared. And out of nowhere appeared behind her. Tomoyoki, without wasting time, turns her blade. Cruel comes in with a kick. Her soul gets screenshotted, and she's thrown to the other side of the cell. The psycho is persistent, and here she comes again. This time, she took a punch to the gut that, instead of taking a screenshot, her soul just left her body. It was like, not worth it, better leave it alone. Because my friend, think about a punch to the gut. Tomoyoki, unable to take it, falls to the ground, and her armor begins to fall apart. Cruel says she's a prisoner on death row, but it's sad to have to finish off a companion's family member. Tomoyoki then asks Cruel to spare her. You're still a hero, you made a promise to Laza, but Cruel cuts her off. No, I'm not a hero anymore. Tomoyoki insists, begging please for him to spare her. She wants to avoid meeting the devil himself at all costs. However, Cruel just says this scene is exactly like what her victims used to do. But the question is, what did you do to the people who begged for forgiveness? Tomoyoki just laughs, knowing there's really no way out. If the creep is gonna follow that logic, she's screwed. And she is, because here he comes, preparing the final punch. The punch was so strong it was heard from outside the prison. Candace and Kato heard it too and are wondering what that boom was. The crazy girl's loving it, thinking it's Cruel. Yeah, it really was him, and she's pretty excited about her future husband. But some people were scared to death by the noise. Some guards have no idea what's happening. However, there are also others, those who got even more excited and whose expectations are sky high. Huang says he won't be able to take it. I'm really gonna have to start climbing up. Whoa, and then he gets kicked out of nowhere. The kick was so strong it sent him flying into the wall. Of course, the kid doesn't understand anything and says, what a surprise. Someone approaches asking if he's bored. It's an old man asking if Huang wants someone to play with. This psycho's name is Kingston. Huang gets excited, Grandpa is really scary. The old man says there's nothing scary about him. He's just a kind and friendly grandpa who likes to play with children. Yeah, folks, I think that play with children part has a very sinister double meaning. It's not just playing, it's playing. You get it. Like that type of prisoner who, in the command center, the guards call for the boss. She asks what happened, and they tell her to look at the 5th floor camera. Huang and Kingston just met. The boss says this is good news. After this encounter, there will surely be one less. Sunjo confesses she'd prefer it if Kingston wins, since he's much less dangerous. However, why is Huang keeping that girl floating in the air? On the 5th floor, Huang asks if Grandpa really wants to play with him. Grandpa replies yes, but Huang says he doesn't want to play right now. Kingston says that's a shame, because he's dying to play a little with the boy. Before you ask who this Kingston guy is, he's the first prisoner of Ruculos. He's a long-term prisoner, been there for ages. However, unlike most who are on the 4th and 5th levels, Kingston only took out 3 people in his entire life. But the first victim was the most powerful villain of his time, a certain Caracas. The other 2 victims were the most powerful heroes of the time, Clark and Hilo. Kingston appeared out of nowhere and eliminated the 3 most powerful people in the world. At the time, he even wondered if that made him the strongest in the world, but actually he found it all very disappointing. After saying these words, he allowed the government to take him away. The guy was a global threat, but he surrendered voluntarily after eliminating only 3 people. That and some political beef between the government and the Hero Association of the time. This whole mess ended up delaying his execution for 30 years. In fact, it still hasn't happened. Kingston tries again to get Huang to play, and this time he even accepts. Since Grandpa insisted so much, the kid starts levitating all the guards' bodies. Immediately after, he turns everything into meatballs. He says he's gonna play just a little bit. The meatballs are launched in Kingston's direction, but the old man, instead of being scared, is totally chill. With great ease, he dodges everything. He says he thought the boy used telekinesis. However, from the way he attacks, it doesn't look like that at all. So, do you have another attack? Huang says playing with the old man doesn't seem fun. After all, what's the fun in taking the life of someone who's already on their way out due to old age? The old man says Huang is very arrogant. In all the time I've been alive, I've seen many people who thought they were the big shots. But in the end, they were just small fish in a pond. Kingston uses a strange force in his foot and manages to break the entire floor. With the pieces of concrete flying, he says that, normally, these people are defeated. The problem is that Kingston's stump was felt throughout the entire prison. The guards are already screaming, thinking it's an earthquake. The boss tells them to shut up, saying the prison can't be destroyed by an attack like that. There are 20 layers of special walls. Not even a first-class hero could break through that. But back to the old man. He says he's gonna teach the boy some manners. Then he goes all out towards Huang. From the look on Huang's face, I think this kick is gonna land square on. Too bad we don't get to find out. The next scene just shows the boom from outside the prison. The people in the control tower hear the noise immediately. Even Cruel, who's down on the first basement level, hears it too. The director asks if everyone is okay and wants to know who won. But the security guard just says there's another problem. Those 20 layers of wall she said wouldn't break are just gone. The damn attack just wiped out all the walls. The director thinks, well, okay, we're screwed. Rushing to see the damage, Huang says the old man is really impressive. He's like a human drilling platform. Now things have gotten a bit more interesting. Maybe I should follow the old man. That's when someone says no. Why follow that old man? Isn't it more fun to stay here and chat with me? Watching on the cameras, the people in the control center don't understand anything. In fact, neither does Wong. He's asking who these people are. The crazy girl says he might know who she is, but first he'll have to stop and talk. The director from the control center starts shouting, first, who is this pest? Second, how did she get to the 5th basement level? Looking up, the girl says there's just one thing she needs to do first. Unfortunately, the viewers will have to leave. She left the boss with a blank screen. She was being too nosy. That guy over there is the other suitor. She can't find out. However, back to Cruel, our protagonist who stopped being the protagonist for a while. He's telling the director that he's cleared the basement and that she can open the 2nd gate. But on the communicator, you can't hear clearly. She even tries to tell Ganju to wait, but unfortunately the communication is breaking up badly. Cruel even thought about waiting a bit, but you know how it is, he's in a hurry. So it's better to open it by brute force. It's easier, saves time, and the director stays in her corner. There's just one detail about the floors of the 2nd basement level. As he went down the stairs, unlike the 1st floor and the 1st basement level, which smelled of blood everywhere, on the 2nd there was no stench at all. In fact, there was no one. Not a single body in sight. It was too clean. See, I just said that and Cruel hears a scream. It's a crazy girl screaming, telling 2 giant hellhounds not to get close. The little critter's face is how cute. Look, seeing Cruel, the girl screams for him. And just as she was about to be attacked, our boy intervenes. Easy peasy, there go the 2 little doggies. Our Sigma, who never loses his cool, asks if the girl is okay, but the woman runs and hugs him, but with a small detail she calls him Gango. I thought you were on the 5th basement level, but what was that? Since when did you awaken powers? It was amazing. Why did you never tell me? Realizing the situation, Cruel gently pushes the girl away. He says he's not Gango, but his brother. The girl isn't stupid, she knows who he is too. I know, you're the hero Ganju. I just don't understand why you're wearing an agent's uniform and, most importantly, what the hell are you doing here? Cruel, as always, doesn't answer directly and just says it's not safe there. The girl apologizes, calling him brother-in-law. Yeah, folks, brother-in-law. Cruel asks what she's talking about, and the girl explains that it's the first time they've met, and that she should have introduced herself earlier. She introduces herself as Gango's future wife, in other words, Cruel's sister-in-law. Of course, Cruel is speechless. First, since when was his brother dating? Second, how is he going to explain to the girl that the kid is gone? But, in a cell on the 2nd basement level, we see someone calling for a certain Mally. The girl says that it seems there's a stranger among them. Mally confirms calling another person Meal. She wonders how many sins this new stranger has committed. Petting an abomination, Mally says the stranger took out her new puppy. Meal says that's okay, no problem. The solution is simple, just send this new stranger to hell. Back to Hongjie and Cruel. She says she had only seen him in photos and videos. It's funny how much you look like your brother. You're identical. Cruel even comments that his brother did say he had a girlfriend, but didn't say anything about marriage. Hongjie smiles and says she has one more thing to tell him. See that little dot on her belly? And Harris is on the way. Yeah, Cruel, you're screwed, my friend. Actually, it's this child who's screwed, right? Barely born and already gonna grow up without a father. Hongjie says the baby is not even a month old yet. That's why her belly isn't showing much. They only found out a few days ago. Gango was going to tell him about it after Wong's execution, but because of the whole mess, he hasn't been able to yet. So, she's giving him a heads up. Stammering, Cruel asks if this is really true. Hongjie confirms and asks if there's a problem. Of course, Cruel says no. In the end, she asks what brings him there. Did you come to contain the riot? Cruel explains that he was assigned as a special agent to execute all the prisoners in Ruculos. The girl asks if he's really carrying out the executions and why. Did the director order this? Cruel realizes she doesn't know anything about what happened and decides to explain everything very quickly. After a few minutes of explanation, the girl understood that there was an EMP attack. She asks who the hell could do something like that, but Cruel replies that they're still investigating. Desperate, Hongjie remembers Gango. He was on the 5th floor. What happened to him? Cruel was about to tell Hongjie the truth, but when he saw the expression on her face and her hand on her belly, his heart broke. So, it's better to lie. Why tell the truth now? He says someone is sending a rescue signal from the 5th floor. The girl thanks God, much more relieved. Cruel says it's dangerous for her and the baby there, and that she should go up right away. But the stubborn girl says no, she's staying. She says she can make Cruel's descent easier, but he just asks how. Hongjie explains that she has the ability to see people's memories just by looking into their eyes. Cruel immediately makes a strange face, and she tells him to calm down. Your memories haven't been rummaged through, I only use it when it's really necessary. Her ability is often used in the prison to know if inmates are guilty or not. Cruel says, okay, but how can that help me? The girl explains that the 2nd basement level is being controlled by the siblings Miel and Molly, who have special and creation type powers. The psychos have the ability to summon creatures, and when these creatures pierce someone's heart, the person becomes a puppet. And at this moment, all the prisoners on the 2nd basement level are puppets. Cruel says that's fine, but that he already knew that, including that they are disciples of some mage. Therefore, it's better for her to start going up. The The girl insists, saying that some of the puppets are corrections officers. Cruel won't be able to tell who's a cop and who's a prisoner. That's where I come in. Clearly, Cruel questions. They're already puppets, so they're not really alive anymore. What's the difference in knowing who's who if they've all practically been eliminated? The girl says it's not quite like that they are still alive, but that the siblings need to release them. The problem is convincing the siblings, and only she could do that. Cruel says it's not a good idea. It's not safe for her, let alone for the baby. However, the girl retorts that before being a mother, she is a corrections officer and must do her duty. Cruel realizes that his brother really did find his soulmate. She's just as crazy as he is. Raising his hand, he says he understands. But he's not stupid either, right? And he starts to envelop her with his power. You can help, but you're gonna stay up here, safe. And don't bother complaining. You can cry, grumble all you want. You're gonna stay there in time out. Some time passes and they continue walking. This time, the girl has accepted that there's no way out of the bubble. Ahead, they encounter several enemies controlled by the siblings. Hongjie says this is the power of Mio, the older brother. Many officers were captured by him, so it's best to be careful. Hearing this, Cruel asks which of them are officers. The girl starts to activate her power, asking him to wait a moment. Giving it a good look, she realizes it's the last two in the line. The girl was even going to suggest a strategy for Cruel to immobilize everyone and then separate them. However, Cruel's power begins to move, completely blocking the girl's vision. Of course, she gets mad and starts to complain, but it's no use. Cruel just says there's a much easier way. Just separate and restrain the officers. Then just clean house with the rest, sparing no one. Either way, the prisoners were going to be eliminated anyway. So this is the easiest way to solve the problem. Watching everything through some kind of observation bubble. The siblings are analyzing Cruel's abilities. The girl asks her brother if he thinks Cruel is stronger than their master, or stronger than that damn woman. The brother isn't sure, so he doesn't know what to say. The girl hugs him, saying she's scared. However, Meal tells her not to worry. It won't be so easy for him to get here. And this is where we take a break. If you guys want to see all hell break loose in the continuation, you know what to do, right? Smash that like button, comment down below asking for part 2, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel and ring that bell so you don't miss the next videos. Thanks everyone, and see you next time.